Thanks for joining us on Relational Practice, a social work podcast. I'm Dr. Jodie Park.
And I'm Rose Mackey. And we're both private practice social workers here in New South Wales, Australia, working in the fields of child protection, out-of-home care and trauma. And we're recording this episode on Dharawal land.
We would love for you to follow our podcast and connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and via our new YouTube page. We'll be adding content and videos to all of the platforms regularly.
Possibly.
No, we will. Well,
we just had a discussion about how terrible we looked in the last video and we're reconsidering, but we'll get back to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, please, and as always, please send us practice stories, questions or comments to relationalpractice01@gmail.com.
Yes.
All right, so today we're going to talk about polyvagal theory in social work practice, and Rose is going to take it away.
Well, I think my state just shifted.
Did it?
It did.
Huh?
No, to be honest, I'm not feeling very safe and connected, which is the top of the ladder of polyvagal theory, which we'll get into. But that is because I've had a hectic morning. But also, I really love polyvagal theory, as you know.
Yeah.
And for some reason, thinking about doing this as an episode has made me really nervous.
Yeah.
I don't want to misrepresent or do a poor job talking about polyvagal theory because I love it and I found it very useful in my work. And I guess I really want other people that maybe don't know that much about it or to extend people's knowledge, but I don't want to do a poor job. So anyway, I'm sure as we go on, my state will shift back up into safe and social. But yeah, that's where I'm sitting this morning.
You know what we always say, though, that this is from our perspective.
Yes.
So this is our interpretation of really anything we talk about. And I don't think you know this theory backwards.
Well, I think I do.
Well, I think you do too. I don't know much about it at all. You've taught me everything that I know about this theory. I think it's just because you now have to talk to someone other than me about it. But you're still talking to me.
I am. That's true. So we'll see how we go. But I guess polyvagal theory is the science of connection. And if you think about relational practice, and if you think about social work practice or even welfare practice, it's about humans and the way humans connect. And I think that's one of the reasons why I fell in love with polyvagal theory. It also is how we connect with each other when we're in safety, how we mobilize in danger, and how we immobilize when we're under life threat.
Okay, so it's very much connected to the automatic stress responses.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It absolutely is. It looks at our autonomic nervous system and acts as the foundation of our emotions, our thoughts, our feelings, and our social interactions. So it is Dr. Stephen Porges' theory.
Okay.
And he shared this in the 1990s. I think it was in 1994. And he was discussing polyvagal theory as an understanding for how our autonomic nervous system, so particularly the vagus nerve, responds to feelings of safety and danger. And so I think if you think about trauma, and that's a field, where most of our work is steeped in, safety and danger are really prevalent emotions and the foundations of a lot of actions and behaviours and reactions.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's the motivating factors for so much, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, makes sense.
Which is why I think polyvagal theory fits so lovely in practice. So, and I love the word vagus, ventral nerve, because it reminds me of
Las Vegas.
Las Vegas in a good time.
That's funny. That's funny.
I think most people would have heard of people talking about, I'm in fight or flight, or I'm in freeze or fawn. Like those are very common words that you hear.
Can we just talk about fawn?
Yes.
What's your thoughts on fawn?
Oh, so my thoughts on fawn are shaped by polyvagal theory, to be honest, and we'll get into that later in the episode. But what do you think about fawn?
Well, I don't know now that you say it links back to a theory, I'm like, I'm going to hold off on my thoughts. We can talk about it later. look, I'm not a fan in terms of when when it's been talked about in terms of that automatic stress response. I'm not a fan because for me, I think fawn, there is a bit of a cognition attached to fawn.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you're thinking about the body's response to danger, there usually isn't cognition attached because it's from this whole other area of the brain. So that for me has never sat well.
Okay.
But I'm going to learn from you.
Well, maybe not, but we'll definitely talk about fawn throughout the episode because in Dr. Stephen Porges' work, another brilliant person, Deb Dana, she extended, I guess, on polyvagal theory, and her visuals are on a ladder.
Mm-hmm.
So the way I understand what Deb Dana has put into the world is that if you imagine a ladder, at the top of the ladder is safe and social, and this is where we are well connected, where you often will hear people say in your window of tolerance. That's your window of tolerance.
Okay.
You can emit safety.
Yep.
You are feeling safe. All your systems are online,
mm-hmm.
and you're able to make decisions. You're able to go about the world in a very well regulated state.
Okay, so you're feeling fairly comfortable, and you can manage any stress that happens.
Yes, okay. At the top of the ladder.
Right.
When we fall down the ladder,
and
another polyvagal theorist or person that discusses polyvagal often is Justin Sensory, and he talks about it being flight and then fight. And often you hear people say fight, flight, but he always says flight, fight. So when I've listened to him talk about polyvagal, he talks about we fall into flight first, and that's where our feet, we want to run, we want to get out. We're in danger and we want to avoid it. We want to get out.
Yeah.
If our bodies or our environment doesn't allow us to run, automatically we go into fight mode, and that's where we feel it up in our upper bodies.
So the first response is always to run, according to this theory.
Yes, and
right.
And then if you can't run, you're going to fight. So Deb Dana and Dr. Stephen Porges, they all say fight, flight, or flight, fight, but Justin Sinceri will always say flight and then fight.
Yeah.
If those abilities aren't able to us or don't keep us safe enough, we're going to fall right down the bottom of the ladder and we're going to fall into shutdown. And that's where people talk about freeze and immobilization.
So it is quite a different way to think about the automatic response to stress.
Yes. And so and it is automatic. So our body is, and our whole internal working is predicting and working out our state oftentimes before we're conscious of it.
Yeah.
So if you think about, you hear people talk about triggers.
Yeah.
So a smell can trigger people, and maybe they're not even aware that that's
the
trigger, but our body goes, ooh, I've smelt this before and I was really unsafe, and our body's starting to cue in the danger signals, and it's already doing its automatic thing.
Before cognition's even enacted.
Before cognition is enacted.
Yeah.
And part of polyvagal theory, it's connected, we're mammals, and this is a scientific study about mammals.
Yeah.
And so, and when you said fawn, I have read, if you think about a mouse being captured by a lion, oftentimes they fake dead. That's the fawn. They fake dead to try and get out of danger. If that doesn't work, if you think about when you're in a really life-threatening situation, oftentimes people will their system shuts down and it appears to be faking dead. I'm not saying they're faking dead, but it's your body protecting you. Go into, let me shut it down. And that can be a defense state, because maybe you're not interesting if you're not going to put up the fight. So maybe the lion lets go of the mouse, and all of a sudden you can get up and fight and run and get out.
So that's why it's fawn, because it's not a shutdown.
No, it's a defense state.
Yeah, so it's pretend.
Yes.
Pretend.
Well, my words, pretend state.
Yeah.
Your body's doing automatically because it knows that this is a way to be defensive as well. If it doesn't work though, you can come back up to fight, flight. And the other thing about the ladder of polyvagal that I really like is you fall down the ladder. To get back up, you've got to go back through the states. So you can't go from shutdown to safe and social.
No.
You don't get to skip fight and flight on your way up. You have to come back up through your states.
So interesting. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
It does challenge the way I thought about things, but I can see why this would be so relatable to practice and relatable to understanding. I guess maybe would it be fair to say the developmental kind of state of people, or not really?
Not really. I think it helps explain like myself as an individual. If you think about yourself as a practitioner, if I come to work and I'm in flight fight mode, I'm transferring also that energy onto my clients. I'm not able to make good decisions. I'm not actually going through my day in a way that's, amazing. So I need to be aware of my state as a practitioner, but I also need to be aware of my client's states and how you don't have to stay in fight and flight for hours. You don't have to stay in shutdown for hours. It can be you slide down, and depending on your context, the environment, and your connection, you can come back up through the states fairly quickly. So we're not talking that if you're in shutdown, you're there for 3 hours and the day's gone. You can come back up through the states relatively quickly, depending on context, depending on your environment, and depending on your past experiences.
Okay. So if I think about this in terms of an analogy, that old analogy that people generally try and explain fight or flight or freeze response with, if you're walking down a dark alley, so you're already, a little bit cautious. You're already a little bit cautious, and then someone jumps out at you unexpectedly, and then you go into that automatic stress response. And then you realize, if there's no danger, you just realize, then you kind of regulate yourself fairly quickly.
Yep.
But this is saying that can still happen. It's just that you kind of internally are going through these different processes.
Well, you've just explained it though. If you're walking down an alley and you're cautious, you're already in flight mode. Your senses have already picked up. You just said that. Your senses have already picked up.
Okay.
I'm unsafe. And this is often it's felt in the body.
Yeah.
Our trauma responses are also bodily responses and automatic. So your body's already in flight mode. Someone jumps out and you prepared in your hands, you've gone straight to fight mode.
Love it.
Because you've already been in flight mode.
All right, you explained that so well.
Then there's no danger. You don't go to shutdown. You come back up to maybe your heart's still racing and you're walking a little bit. Your mouth goes dry. That's all the body's autonomic systems.
Kind of regulating
and preparing for danger.
Yeah.
Then you go, silly me. Nothing to be afraid of in a dark alley. Let's pretend we're men, not women. And you just keep walking.
Okay.
You're back in safe and social.
Okay.
But say there was danger. You were in flight mode, you went to fight mode and you couldn't fight your way out. You might immobilize and you might be in shutdown.
Yep. Okay. I see it. I really like this theory. I wish I knew more about it, but I'm learning a lot from you right now.
Probably. So let's just take a step back. If we go back to the vagus nerve, so this, according to Dr. Stephen Porges' theory, helps individuals feel safe, calm and connected. So the ventral vagus nerve, as it's also known, has 2 branches. See, I've already stuffed it up. The vagus nerve has 2 branches. One is the ventral vagus nerve and the second is the dorsal vagus nerve.
Right.
See the big words in this? So the ventral vagus nerve works with the sympathetic nerve and the dorsal vagal nerve. Bagel? No, the dorsal vagus. I can't read my own writing.
I am a little hungry. You just said bagel.
The dorsal vagus nerve helps us manage our emotions, our heart rate and stress. So if we understand how all that works, your dry mouth, all of our body's reactions, it can help us, one, take care of ourselves as practitioners, but also attend to our clients.
Well, and is it also about helping people that we work with to understand how their body is responding so that they can identify the stage that they might be in?
And Deb Dana has lots of books and lots of resources to actually help practitioners or therapists explain polyvagal to their clients so the clients can actually, like you just said, understand what their body's doing, understand how their body reacts under stress or flight mode, shutdown, so they can get back up the ladder.
Because that would all be so individual, the way that your body responds to distress.
Based on your experiences in the past, your context, your relationships.
Your socialization experience. Like lots of different things.
Things.
Personality, your temperament.
Yeah.
Okay.
So The other thing is our brain works with our nervous system, and it's, sending and receiving the messages to help our body do everything from breathing, running, and solving problems, feeling happy, sad, mad. Yeah?
Yeah.
So the brain stem is also, pretty central to polyvagal theory because it's the one sending and receiving the messages.
Right. Makes sense.
Yeah. So part of the other fascinating thing for me about polyvagal theory is the scientific nature of it. It's not, where, I don't know, I might have a theory or a hypothesis about if I do this and this in this client's world, this might be the outcome. This is kind of biologically, scientifically based, and it's about mammals. So it's across species, which is why I gave the example of the lion and the mouse.
So is it also, is there research around it being cross-cultural?
Yes.
Great. Okay.
Yep.
Because I know that's one of the biggest criticisms of something like attachment theory is that people say that it doesn't actually count for cultural differences in child rearing and societies and the way that kind of communities might raise children.
Mm-hmm. And I think, and again, so many different theories of thought on that because we know that attachment theory and Mary Ainsworth's work was done across cultures. Maybe not in the context of 2025, but it absolutely was. But I think like any theory, as much as I'm going to say I believe it's scientific, there are probably people that say it's not proven, it's not scientific. But the way that I understand and I've heard many people talk about polyvagal is it is steeped in science.
I mean, it sounds like it because it goes back to the way that the body functions and the relationship between the body and the brain.
Right.
So,
and it's our experiences, like the experiences of mammals have been shaped over hundreds of thousands of years.
Yeah.
And it talks about that too. If you get into the nitty gritty of it, it goes back to, primal times and the hunting and the gathering, and it explains it all.
Cool.
So co-regulation, neuroception, and hierarchy are the three organizing principles of polyvagal theory. And what I really love about co-regulation is, is it safe to connect? And polyvagal theory talks about the autonomic nervous system sends and searches for cues of safety, but also danger. And these two experiences drive like our survival and the longing for connection.
See, I love that because that sits so nicely with, other theories that talk about the need for relationships.
Yes.
To actually promote optimal development.
And I think, like, we're strong believers in that. I talk often about my great auntie who's so lonely and the impact of in older life being lonely, but even younger life. If there's no connection, if relationships aren't there, we see the impact of that. And there's lots of theories that talk about that as well. But in polyvagal, when we think about co-regulation, there's the drive to survive and then the longing to connect. And the two primary experiences coexist in the autonomic nervous system. And sometimes they're working together, so lovely, and other times they're in opposition to each other. And we see that play out, don't we?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
And, it kind of just reminded me, I was only recently having this conversation, just the conversation about the need to connect with a young person I was working with. And I kind of explained it to him as you don't have to be that sole person on that island because it's really hard to be that sole person on the island. You actually need to have people around you that you can connect with. So kind of saying something similar, maybe?
You are.
Okay, good.
Very much. Because I guess it's that kind of organizing principle that for humans, mammals as well, we need co-regulation. And so your cues are sending me a signal right now, and my cues are sending you a signal right now. So we can co-regulate and we can have a really amazing conversation and invite heaps of new possibilities, or we cannot co-regulate, so we're going to increase your activity and reinforce habitual survival patterns, isolation, disassociation, single solitary life.
But it makes such sense because we call it, in by using other language, you're talking about reading cues from somebody. It's that unspoken interaction stuff, that maybe transactional relationship kind of stuff.
And you love reading all that nonverbal cues.
Love it.
And so what polyvagal is saying, as I understand it, is it's our autonomic nervous system already cueing in danger and safety and shifting our state and, helping us then decide what's going to happen before we're making a conscious decision.
Yeah. So it's about that kind of scanning, that hypervigilant scanning that we know that people who've experienced really intense times of not being safe, not even intense times, just times of not being safe in the past, really have really strong skills in hypervigilance and kind of reading and scanning the environment.
And I think it's like what we just talked about, that's what's happening inside our body, the drive to survive and the longing for connection. But what's happening outside is the environment and also the context of the day and the time. So it's all impacting and it all is sending our body's messages and our vagus nerves and all the other nerves are making decisions for us.
Yeah, okay.
And cueing us either to safety or danger and where we are on our ladder.
Yeah. Wow, the body's so amazing, isn't it? The body and the brain.
The body and the brain and how they can work together or not. Because often you talk about with your young people, I'm pretty sure I've heard you say this a million times, how not all the time our brain is our friend.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I really like that when we work with children and young people because that is based, on all of these kind of our history of experiences. And sometimes it can really trick us as children, young people, but even as adults into reacting and acting.
Yeah.
And that's our shifting states.
Yeah.
Because something's triggered us.
Yeah.
Or we don't feel safe in the moment, but we can't explain it and we're falling down the ladder. So by understanding polyvagal theory, understanding how you as an individual react when you're falling down the ladder can kind of help you either stop and come back up the ladder or seek safety in co-regulating. Does that make sense?
Makes so much sense. Yeah, it really makes a lot of sense.
So the other thing is that the interaction between our nervous systems is bringing the perception to the consequences of neuroception and making the implicit autonomic experience explicit.
Okay. I love that because there's a lot of there's a lot of work done around people understanding that they have unconscious as well as conscious states, and the unconscious drives the conscious.
Yes.
Yeah.
Such an easy way of thinking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you think about how either in therapy, case management, whatever your work is in practice, how you can apply that to clients.
Yeah, absolutely. And how you can explain it as well, I think.
There are so many resources about explaining polyvagal theory to children, to adults. There's resources for therapists. There's so much out there. So Deb Dana does amazing work. There's heaps of printables by Lisa on polyvagal theory and explaining that and helping children understand.
Yeah.
There's so much out there.
Great.
And I just think if you find good stuff, share it with your friends because it helps you as a practitioner and it also helps your clients.
Well, and it can be adapted, I'm assuming, these tools, which we always say about tools, they should be adaptable.
Yes.
A good tool means you can use it, you can add your perception of what the tool means, and then you can use it how you want it.
Even I think about, say, school teachers, and I don't love behaviour management plans or behaviour management when people talk about behaviour management because I don't see what's expressed by often children who have had trauma in their lives as behaviour. To me, behaviour is a choice. And some of the things that you witness our children that we work with doing it's not choice. It's where they are, where their state is on the ladder, right?
Yeah.
So I don't love the word, but let's just pretend we're thinking about behaviour management in the classroom. If as a teacher you could understand polyvagal theory, you can help children co-regulate. Polyvagal talks about we need to be able to co-regulate before we can self-regulate.
Yeah.
And if we can co-regulate, if we can help children co-regulate, if we can understand their shifts of state, we can actually, instead of letting them fall right to the bottom of the ladder, we can stop them in flight mode. We can get them back to safe and social. That's where the learning's done. That's where the friendships are made. So if you've got to understand how to apply polyvagal even as a teacher, your job's going to be easier, but your impact on children's learning, social skills, development is enhanced. And that's why when you say, are they adaptable? So adaptable to other professions.
Yeah, for sure. But I was also thinking when you were talking about, that's the role of socialization and attachment, isn't it? It's about using the relationship to help someone to regulate. So it is about enhancing co-regulation skills.
Yes.
So you have to absolutely co-regulate before you can self-regulate. And for children that have missed out on that stage, have missed out on learning those skills, have missed out on learning that relationships can actually be helpful and positive, then they do find themselves as, school-age children or or adolescents or, even adults, like missing out on this whole scope of learning around how to use relationships in a helpful way.
Right. So to me, polyvagal backs up attachment theory.
It
gives it so much more credibility in a sense, because it's saying this is the science of our bodies and our brains working together, and this is our autonomic nervous system shifting state. So if we can, someone's falling down into flight or fight mode, if we can help them co-regulate, we can get them back up the ladder,
or teach them that co-regulation is not something to fear.
Yes.
So I feel like that needs to be on a t-shirt.
On a t-shirt.
We need to have this t-shirt that says we need to co-regulate before self-regulate or something like that.
Something like that? You reckon that would help?
Because I think about Parenting 101. Like that's what people need to be able to teach their children, skills around co-regulation and using themselves as that co-regulation tool.
Yes. And you think about with children, it could be as simple as holding a hand. If there's safety in the relationship, holding hand can be a co-regulating experience.
For sure. And for children, sorry, I cut you off.
No, go.
It's because I had a thought, and it'll go.
I get it.
On. But also, I think for children that enter care, out-of-home care, then one of the things I always tell carers is you need to go back to whatever stage, developmental stage, they have missed out on in terms of learning some skills around primarily relationship building skills or using relationships in a safe way. And you need to up the nurturing activities to actually teach them that how to have a relationship during that stage. Does that make sense?
It does. And I love that. I remember many years ago, I was placing a child in with pre-adoptive parents.
Yeah.
And the adoption caseworkers who had been doing adoption work for years and knew so much more than I were talking to the parents. The child was 3 that was coming into their home with the hope of adopting this little man. And the adoption caseworkers were talking to this couple about co-sleeping.
Yeah.
About feeding him. Yes, he's 3 and he can feed himself, but about feeding him and about taking him on swing sets and acting like he was 18 months old.
Love it.
And I remember I was sitting there thinking, what is going on? And the couple were like, of course, we'll do anything. Co-sleeping at that time, and it probably still is controversial.
Yeah, it is.
But what they were talking about was taking that child back to that 18-month-old stage, which is when he was removed and when things went really wrong for him, and re-nurturing him back up through his ages and stages of development because of that missed, in their minds, that's where he'd missed, and that's what they needed to help attachment. It was needed for him to help to learn the skills of co-regulation and safety and trust in relationships.
Yeah.
But as a younger caseworker, I was just sitting there thinking, why are they telling this couple this? I thought about that for so long after. I had no one to talk about it. But now I think about that, that's what they were telling them. In very practical terms, how they could help this child learn all these skills.
Yeah. Well, and you know how I learned about nurturing? It's from a person that I still know quite well now, who is now a manager in an out-of-home care service, who was a house manager in out-of-home care for a long time. And I remember them having a conversation with their manager at the time about, 15-year-olds in this house, and how one of the strategies that they were telling their staff to do was have their favourite drink ready when they got home from school, have their favourite food ready as a snack when they got home from school, do all this nurturing stuff that they would have missed out on. And at the time I thought to myself, my God, that is gold.
Yes.
That is gold. And now I use that all the time because it's so important and it's so true.
So true.
Yeah.
And I love Maggie Dent. She often talks about, and this is just in general parenting, helping parents attune and nurture their kids in primary school. Don't get them from school and ask them how their day was. Get them in the car, pass them their favourite drink or their favourite food and say, I missed you so much today.
Yeah.
Or I had a good day, but it's better now I've seen you. And that's the extent of it.
Yeah.
They don't need 100 questions about what did you learn, who did you play with, how did that go?
Yeah.
They need the nurturing.
Yeah, absolutely. So true. And nurturing that is often, nurturing for children that have experienced trauma, it needs to look exactly what you're saying about that 18-month-old.
Yes.
Sorry, that 3-year-old. It needs to look pseudo-immature in terms of their chronological age.
Yes. And so from a polyvagal theory, that is helping shift states back up to the top of the ladder, which is where we want to be. It's where we want to spend most of our days, up the top of the ladder.
I feel like we need a T-shirt that also has a ladder on it.
Well, I do love the ladder because you think about it's easy. You fall down a ladder, you've got to climb back up.
Yeah.
And so to think about as a worker, if your client is immobilized and they are at the very bottom of the ladder, they've got to go through fight, flight to get to safe and social. So how do you help them? If they're immobilized on the floor, if it's safe to touch them, hey Jodie, I'm here and I've just brought you a little Snickers or a little Mars bar and a Coke. Why? The sugar. It helps your body. It helps,
Yeah.
And then if you can get them to sit up, and I'm thinking about residential homes or juvenile detention centres, if you can get them to sit up, they're going to go in a fight mode.
Yeah.
So where do you need to be and how can you help them? Let's do 20 wall push-ups because they have to expand energy in their arms. Let's play a card game. And that's why I love Taco Cat Goat Cheese Pizza. You have to use your hands. That's expanding that energy.
That's a card game, everyone who might not know that. And it's a card game that confuses me to no end.
I love playing that with children and young people for that reason.
It's actually fun.
It's fun.
And you need to use your you need to use your body. You need to be thinking.
So intentional. It gets you
true.
out. So you've expanded all your energy from your fight, flight. Let's walk. Let's do something with our feet. Let's jog on the spot. You make it fun.
Yeah.
And then you're also at the same time using your relationship, you're co-regulating, expanding the energy, and you can come to safe and social. And I know I made that sound so simple, and it's never that simple in practice, but that is how you can be trauma responsive using polyvagal.
So, and also it's what I loved about what you just said. And of course, we know it's not that simple in practice, but I guess in essence, what you're saying is that it's not about pathologizing the behavior. It's not even about focusing on the behavior. It's about actually it's almost about ignoring the behavior happened and just kind of helping this person to co-regulate by getting them up using their bodies in an intentional, reparative way.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then if you think about Gabriel Mate's work, so he talks about trauma being stored in the body. And so I then linked that is polyvagal theory because your body, it's coursing through your body and it has to come out or you're going to be immobilized and shut down. So how do we help clients very intentionally and ourselves when we fall down the ladder? Because we don't want to stay down the ladder ever as workers and probably as humans.
No.
So if you know how your body's going to respond and what's going to get you back up the ladder, and I'm like 20 wall push-ups, anyone can do that in 40 seconds.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be extensive, amazing,
lots
of work with lots of words or and then the behavior. We don't need to sit around and talk about what happened when you were in fight mode for 20 and focus on that. Let's focus on how do we get this child out of fight mode.
Well, because focusing on that just actually makes that response worse. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't understand why people think that's the first thing to do. Just say I've had a tantrum. The last thing I want is somebody to come over to me and make me talk about the fact that I've just lost control.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Or talk about using that as a weapon.
You know, I've read somewhere, and whoever put this so articulately, hats off to you. You don't teach a drowning child how to swim in the moment they're drowning. And that's exactly what we're doing when we're asking for accountability or for someone to explain their feelings in the moment.
That's right. Yeah.
You'd never go up to a drowning child and say, let me teach you how to swim in this moment.
No, that's so true. You would save them. You would make sure they're okay. And then when everything's calm.
Much later on. You might say, let's have some swimming lessons.
Yes.
And so if you think about that when you're seeing these behaviours in clients, whether it's in residential, juvenile justice, correction centres, wherever you're working, you can see how this can apply.
Well, it's just about when anyone loses control, really, isn't it? In the moment, it's not in the moment, it's just about riding it through and helping that person to regulate. Instead of pathologizing and overthinking and overanalyzing what might be happening. Yeah. And weaponizing. I'm using that intentionally because that makes me so angry when I'm a kid and I've had some pretty terrible things happen to me, and the way that I manage my own internal stress is by being quite external in my behaviors, and then they're actually used against me. Like, I think, come on, truly.
I love that. That should be on a t-shirt also.
Which bit?
The bit about the last bit of that. Put that on a t-shirt, and that's for all of us practitioners to wear. And people in policy and people on exec boards.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Or maybe on a coaster.
Maybe we can chuck it on a coaster. So we can put our coffee on.
I just want to say that Polyvagal theory believes that developmentally co-regulation happens before self-regulation, which we've talked about.
Yeah.
But even after we've mastered the ability of self-regulating or using self-regulating skills, there is a lifelong need for co-regulation. And that is what we were talking about, loneliness, and what we talk about in relationships.
Yeah, it makes complete sense. It would be very hard to live in isolation and live well.
So difficult.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about neuroception. So this is a word that Dr. Stephen Porges created to describe the way our autonomic nervous system takes in and responds to information. It's different from perception. So perception uses the thinking parts of the brain, but neuroception is the detection without awareness.
Oh, I love that. I've never even seen that word before.
Yeah, because it's a polyvagal word.
Yeah, right.
So you try and say neuroception into your notes on your phone. When I was doing it last night, that's why I couldn't read my writing. I was like, what is this word? It's hard because it's not. I don't even know if it's in the dictionary. Neuroception. Yep. The 3 response states of the autonomic nervous system are organized in the hierarchy, and we all as individuals move in and out of our ventral vagal, sympathetic and dorsal vagal states in very predictable ways. So that's the ladder we're talking about, moving in and out of our states. I'm just making sure I've covered everything I needed to talk about or wanted to talk about it. So I guess, do we want to talk about trauma and polyvagal theory?
I mean, I feel like we should.
Well, considering that's where we kind of are. So polyvagal theory talks about trauma as being stuck in a defensive state. So it describes trauma specifically being related to the autonomic nervous system being stuck in that state, so the defensive state. It's not the event. It's not the incident that people went through, which sometimes you hear people talk about trauma as it was, when they were assaulted. But trauma is the impact of the event, and it's how the event affected you in the moment and still affects you in present day.
Yeah.
So you and I often talk about, especially for lots of children and young people we work with, when people talk about their trauma, like it happened years ago, and it's this distant memory, whereas we talk about trauma as pervasive.
Yeah.
And polyvagal will, the way I believe it, says that it's in our body. and Gabor Mate talks about it, and it's about how it shows up in our body. So the same event is going to impact people in different ways. We know that. So you and I could be on a bus and it crashes, and the way we respond and the way we react and then how it impacts our life is going to look very different.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of the tricky, multifaceted part about trauma.
Well, because it relies so much on internal plus external characteristics.
Yes. So if your states, and there's lots of reading you can do and research about, you can be in, so the states aren't all felt the same by everyone, and there's different intensities, and your states can mix. So you can be in safe and social and a bit of flight mode, and there's really good, Deb Dana has amazing visuals on what this can look like. But depending on where you are on the ladder at any point in time, and how you kind of think about when we talked about temperament and how, so the easy child, the slow to warm child, and the difficult child, and then there was a kind of mix of those states. It's the same for polyvagal.
Yeah.
But if your body is ready to mobilize, but you're forced into immobilization or unable to complete the mobilization survival response, then that's a really acute life threat. So if you're in that state on the bus crash, your outcome's probably going to be poorer than someone who was, well within their window of tolerance or just at the top of the ladder.
Okay. That makes sense.
It does make sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And so one other thing that I often say, and it comes straight from Dr. Stephen Porges, is that a chronic disruption of connectedness is trauma, because trauma disrupts our connection.
Oh.
And it is chronic.
Yeah, so a chronic disconnection.
Yes. So when someone repeatedly gets cut off from safety with others, that leaves them stuck in defensive states. So you think about children who are particularly susceptible to this because of their biological impulse and the need to attach to safe caregivers.
Yeah.
The safety state doesn't get developed, so it leaves that child chronically defensive, in a defensive state, and unable to climb up their autonomic ladder. And you think about our kids that we work with.
Yeah, right.
That is a vast majority of them.
So they're kind of stuck in that hypervigilant, reactive state.
Yep.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So if you think about a behavioural adaptation, is the behaviour we engage in as an adaptation to a stuck defensive state. So it's not something we're doing to avoid feelings of discomfort and shifting up the ladder. It's our state being stuck.
Right, okay.
We're stuck there. So we need to, as workers, if you think about a polyvagal, I guess, state, is to really understand when kids are traumatized, or our clients are, and they're stuck in that defensive state, how do I plan a therapeutic intervention or an approach or case manage to help them move out of that defensive state? And understand then that's where drugs and alcohol come in, some poor choices that are made, bullying, isolating themselves. Like, these are just the examples of their behavioural adaptations from their state.
So I guess, this is going to sound like but I guess it's about adopting that lens to see or to be curious about the state first. Or the behavioural adaptation first.
As opposed to maybe a diagnosis or a behaviour management plan.
Or seeing the behaviour as annoying.
All that. That's actually a good point.
Yeah.
And you think about, from a carer support lens, how this theory could just help create empathy.
Yeah.
And a different lens for a carer to not see a behaviour as annoying, but understand this child is stuck in this state. And as a result, this is now how I'm seeing the child.
Do you know what I'm thinking of as you're talking? I know we always talk about children, and because that's kind of what we know.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of thinking about prisoners and people in prisons who are chronically stuck in that disconnection mode. What that then means in terms of their regulation skills. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
And then extend it to the medical kind of outcomes that we know that they have, or all of the diseases. Gabor Mate talks about it, how it presents then in all of these illnesses later in life or even earlier than expected.
Yeah.
The way it shows up in your body.
But if we're going back to my kind of curious thinking about prisons, and I don't know much about prisons, so please, people out there will know much more than me. But I kind of think that if we're thinking about the criminal justice system as being focused on retribution, is that no? What's it focused on?
Rehabilitation.
Rehabilitation.
That should not be on a t-shirt.
That's hilarious. On rehabilitation rather than punishment. But we've got this whole cohort of people that might be stuck in this disconnected state and so might be functioning like on their ladder like really low.
Yeah.
Then how would that goal of rehabilitation actually be something that could be achieved?
It's like children in the classroom that are down there.
Yeah.
They can't take in information and learn.
Yes.
So, and who are they regulating with? Who's their co-regulation? How do you do that in jail? Are you doing that with the the correctional staff, or are you doing that with other prisoners?
And is it safe to do it with other anybody? Is it safe to do it? I guess that's the first thing, isn't it?
Yep.
That there needs to be this kind of safe space.
Years ago, maybe let's say 10 years ago, I was aware that there was this trial being done to implement like iPads into prisons so prisoners could actually have FaceTime calls with their family to help with the connection. And in Australia, there was one of our big leading telecom communication companies was going to like lead that work and start offering, it was trialed as like a free kind of connection. So you could be in jail, FaceTime your family or your friends, actually see them and have a chance to connect that way.
Yeah.
And I like remember reading it and having mixed feelings at the time, thinking like it was kind of revolutionary and it just fell off the face in Australia. I don't know what happened to that trial, but I think about it now in terms of co-regulation and relationships and attachment theory. And I think what an actual genius idea that would have been.
Well, another genius idea then is around the, prisoners fostering dogs.
Yes, and cats.
And cats. And I think, wow, that's actually, genius is the right word.
Yeah. Well, you think about how we've had a client in here a couple of months ago and we had one of our dogs in here and how much that helped that client stay and be able to share and communicate with us in an effective manner.
Yeah, absolutely. It was just so amazing to watch, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. That instantly this person calmed and focused on the dog. I mean, it wasn't my only dog.
But it could have been.
It could have been, but he's a little harder to co-regulate with unless he loves you. But definitely Cash is just this bundle of joy.
And he was like vigorously rubbing him at one point, wasn't he? Cash just had his paws on his shoulders, like reached up to him, and I was like, you are using all of your energy in fight mode to get that out.
And we, like, reflecting back on that, you could actually see him go through those stages then, because then he visibly relaxed.
Relaxed, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
And it was just helpful for us because we were, we needed to have a pretty tough assessment session. But that's how quickly you can move up and down the stage. Yeah. So you don't have to stay stuck in flight mode. You don't have to spend your whole day there. But you either need people to co-regulate with or you need to know how you're going to get out of your state.
Yep.
What's going to be helpful for you.
Yeah, right.
Because otherwise you're going to keep falling down your ladder.
Well, I guess that's about insight, isn't it? And communication so that you can actually communicate that to other people.
Yes.
This is what it will help me.
So it's about having a good practitioner that can help you understand it if you're a client.
Yeah.
Working out what's going to work for you.
Yeah.
And then being able to share it.
Love it. Okay. That's a great example, actually, of Cash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, He deserved a few treats that night, didn't he?
He really did.
So if you just want to go back to the window of tolerance, because I hear people often talk about the window of tolerance. So the window of tolerance, when you're in your window of tolerance, that's when you, in my opinion, at the top of your ladder. If you're in hyper arousal, you're in flight or fight mode. And if you're in hypo, you're in shutdown.
Right, okay.
So that is just a nice visual way of me understanding.
Yeah.
Because for years people talk about my window of tolerance and I'd be like, I don't know what that is.
Yeah, right.
Is it when I'm tolerant? It's when I'm safe and connected and able to be my best, connect with others, take on a bit of stress and not fall down my ladder.
And I feel like we should weave that into conversations. Imagine if we started using that language when we speak to each other. I mean, we'd be laughing so hard.
If you say, are you in your window of tolerance today?
I feel like you'll swear at me. And I'll be like, maybe not.
I mean, would I swear at you? I don't often swear.
What? What? We don't swear on this podcast, but apart from that.
I try not to. So
Oh, that's funny.
really hope that out of today's podcast, it's given you a curiosity, if you don't know much about polyvagal, to dive into the world of polyvagal, because there are amazing resources and heaps better placed individuals to talk about polyvagal than me. So Deb Dana, Stephen Porges, Justin Sinceri, heaps of people out there. But I guess polyvagal helps me use other theories like attachment theory, socialization. It helps me figure out therapeutic plans for clients, and also helps me think about when I'm, for instance, I was at a school meeting a few months ago and I was, technology wasn't working and people couldn't get on. There are a few people in the room and a few people trying to come in on a different platform. And the feeling of the room was horrible. I wanted, to hit the eject button. I imagined myself in a plane pulling the latch and just flying out in my seat with a parachute. And I was just there, just as I wasn't running the meeting. I wasn't case managing this person. I wasn't teaching this person. So I had a pretty limited role. But I was sitting there thinking, I want to be anywhere but in this room.
Right.
Get me out.
So you were definitely triggered.
I was. And I started looking around because it took so long. And I was like, everyone in this room is triggered.
Right.
And I thought, well, that's curious because what's happening?
Yeah.
And if this is how adult professionals are feeling, what's happening for the children here? That was my very curious thought. But at the very least, I was like, you can't go, you can't eject. So what's going to happen next for you, Rose? And there was a carer in the room, and I just thought, I'm going to purposely connect with this carer because I could see her eyes widening. She was licking, her mouth must have been dry, was my observation, and I thought she's moving down her states too. Let me engage this carer. Let's have some kind of interaction just to pass the time, but purposely to keep her from falling down her ladder. For the other professionals, I was like, it's on yourselves to... because it took so long, had a 5-minute conversation. She had a few sips of water and she visibly sat back in her chair and she said, touched my leg and said, thank you for that.
So you used each other to co-regulate?
Yep.
Wow. Yeah, that's a great example.
Someone else at the meeting then, and we had a 3-way conversation. I mean, it was a pretty big meeting, but I thought we cannot all be.
Yeah.
People would call it dysregulated. I would say we can't all be falling down our ladder because we're there to talk about a child.
Yeah.
And it was pretty important. So to do that well, we needed to be at the top of our ladder.
Yeah, of course.
So I pulled in someone else in the meeting, and it was just like we were in this bubble. And eventually, though, thankfully or not, I was asked at the very start of the meeting to talk about the young person we were there to talk about. So I purposely spoke very slowly. I used my hands. I kind of engaged everyone one-on-one for an opinion to try and get everyone to just come back up their ladders, because I just thought it was a Friday. I don't want to end my working week in a disastrous way.
Yeah.
And it took a lot of my internal resources. But the whole time I was sitting there, I was thinking, how can I purposely use my knowledge of polyvagal to turn this meeting so we're not all then in, I thought we're all going to end up in fight mode. What would that look like?
Well, that would be, I mean, honestly, a little funny, but I just think that's such a good example. It's such a great example of how you can use this theory in a practice setting.
Yes.
To really try and help people to get back into their window of tolerance so that purposeful and good conversations could occur.
Because if you think about it, and we've probably all been in those meetings where it's a shit show.
Yeah.
People are down the ladders, but everyone's down the ladder.
Yeah.
No good comes of that for us as professionals, but absolutely nothing good comes of that for our clients.
No, because you can't make good decisions in that space. And I guess that goes back to what we talked about at the very beginning of this conversation about how you are constantly scanning your environment. So you are actually reacting to the cues that you get off other people.
Absolutely. And you can use that purposefully to bring people up. The only other thing I really wanted to talk about before we end is glimmers.
Yes, I like glimmers.
I love glimmers. So everyone knows what a trigger is. Well, you don't always know what triggers you, but we all know the word triggers.
Yeah.
So it can be a smell, of sound, a feeling, an experience, something that triggers your autonomic nervous system to go down your ladder.
Yep. So it's very individual to the person.
Very individual to the person.
Yep.
And you'll hear people say, oh, yeah, I was triggered and, well, that triggered me. I would love to hear more people say, oh, my glimmer is. So a glimmer is a term that Deb Dana coined, and it's the opposite of a trigger. It's a cue for safety. So when are you feeling connected and safe and social in your body? What is that glimmer? So for me, it's been with my family and absolutely been on the beach.
Yeah.
I know that I feel so happy and safe and connected most times when I'm with my family, not all the time, let's be honest, but that is my connected, safe and social state. Or if I'm at the beach, if I can have my feet in the water or on the sand and I can see the water, absolutely, that's a glimmer for me.
Okay.
So knowing your glimmers can also help you change your states and come back up your ladder.
For sure. Makes perfect sense. Perfect sense. It's a bit like using different language. We could say it's kind of like self-care.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But it's where your body internally and externally, you're aligned and you're safe and you're social.
Yeah.
And if you think about for often traumatized people, those glimmers would be pretty hard to, one, recognize and two, articulate, and maybe they don't have many. So it's about extending their glimmers. How do we help our clients or ourselves recognize when our body feels that way and what it is that's brought us to that state?
But I think it's also about maybe not minimizing a potential glimmer.
Yes.
So not minimizing a strategy or something that somebody does to actually help them to feel safer. And that not being seen as, not appropriate, that's the wrong word, but that not being seen as meaningful.
I feel like you've got a story about that.
I don't really. I think we could all have a story about that. I think we could all have a story about people who may have strategies to help them in the moment that might not actually be seen as a strategy, might just be seen as something they do.
Yeah, okay.
You know what I mean? Like someone who might use, say, an object in an intentional way as a grounding mechanism, I guess, or a grounding tool, and just kind of holding this object. But then, and I actually am thinking of a kid in this for this example, but then that child being told, so they always have this in their pocket, and then whenever they start to feel overwhelmed, they actually start touching it, and it actually helps them to kind of come down again. Or go up the ladder, I guess,
yes, go
or using that language. But then that child being told that they actually can't have that in their school uniform pocket because it's not appropriate.
Oh, my goodness.
Do you know what I mean?
We must have been at the same school.
Well, it just kind of takes away the glimmer.
It does. And it also doesn't help them come back up the ladder, which is actually where you want kids to be, to learn and to have, develop their social skills. So you're just actually containing them to that state, which is not helpful.
No. And I have lots of conversations actually with carers where I say, find an object and that you can use in an intentional way to promote self-regulation or co-regulation. Not from polyvagal lens, but just co-regulate.
Yes.
Because obviously relationships matter, as we've talked about a lot. And then, but that strategy hardly ever gets followed through by the carer because they don't really understand why it is so meaningful.
Yeah, okay. So maybe we need to consider then how we help carers understand that better, because it is a very useful tool if a child actually can find the right texture, the right shape, the right weight. Once they've found it, that can be golden.
I think it's about helping everybody. I have a little rock in my car. Do you know I have to drive a long way now, and I hate driving in the dark and the rain. It really stresses me out, and I can feel myself starting to feel really stressed when I'm in that situation. So I have a little rock in the car that I actually just touch and rub, and it instantly takes me back up that ladder. For that reason, it's just this textured, this textured tool that I've intentionally put meaning to.
Yes. If we could all understand, I guess, how helpful those objects are.
Yeah.
And help either schools or just carers or just individuals know that it's okay to have a rock in your car. It's okay to drive along, and that's how you stay at the top of your ladder.
Yeah.
Or that's how you get back up there.
That's right.
That's fine.
That's right. So if you've got a kid and that's a strategy that's been put in place to help them with regulation, don't throw the rock away. Don't say, that's garbage, let's put that in the bin. Please don't do that.
Yeah, no, that's heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's really sad.
I wonder how many times I've done that with my daughter, though. But she's more a collector and a hoarder. I don't think they're intentional, so I'm going to give myself a pass on that.
Yeah, because that's very different. All right, Rose, thank you. That was great.
I really hope I've done polyvagal theory a little bit of justice, and it sparked some curiosity or more of an understanding of polyvagal theory.
I think you did a great job, and I think you did. And I think that's what this conversation is about. Is it about sparking curiosity? It's about just kind of using, it's a bit like when we have conversations about grief and loss and ambiguous loss. It's about, and temperament, and probably lots of other things we've talked about. It's about just the ability to use a different lens.
Yes, because I can tell you right now, we haven't even touched on the physical environment and how that can assist or not assist your physical state. So for those of you designing office spaces or thinking about how their office looks for clients, or what they need to do to bring a polyvagal lens into their office, there's a whole raft of materials about the physical environment. There's a million things we haven't touched on in polyvagal theory. Yeah. This is just a very brief overview.
Perfect. You did a great job. Thank you. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of another episode of Relational Practice, a social work podcast. We hope today's discussion was valuable for your practice.
And we will bring you another exciting episode in a fortnight on a topic to be discussed later.
That's right.
To ensure you're always in the loop, please follow our podcast. Your subscription and social media engagement also helps us build our community and make these important conversations more accessible to other social workers.
Absolutely. Tell everybody about this podcast. If you find it helpful, tell people about it. We've been just so overwhelmed by the response we've had, haven't we?
We have. It's a bit, it's shocking.
It is shocking.
But we're grateful.
Very grateful, and thank you. We thank you because you've continued to listen and you've told people about us, and I think that's amazing.
Yeah. All right, guys, so until next time, stay safe and remember to always practice relationally.
See ya.